So a drone factory was just hit in Russia. Remember the Alabuga drone factory that the Russians were putting out that promotional video about how awesome it was? Remember that? Well, that was just hit. And it's not that it was just hit, it was hit with Ukrainian drones, which is ironic. UAV strike hit Alabuga in Tardistan, where Shahed drone production plant is located, Russian media reports. The attack reportedly targeted the drone assembly workshop. Okay? It's 1,200 kilometers into Russian airspace. That's where this factory is. Now, I'm not suggesting that this was completely destroyed. It was hit. We don't know what the damage is, but yeah. The Security Service of Ukraine confirmed a strike on a terminal storing Shahed drones in Russia's Tardistan. Logistics hub in the Kizil Yul, which also stores foreign components for drones, was struck this morning by the Services Special Operations Center A. The distance from Ukraine to the target is approximately 1,300 kilometers. Drones struck a UAV assembly plant in Tardistan, and airports were closed around there. 3 cities were warned of possible Ukrainian drone strike. This is what it looked like as it was coming into it. I'm not going to show you the explosion because I don't do that sort of thing. But wow, like that's it. Yeah. So, okay, an explosion also occurred at the gas factory of Russia's largest soda producer, Bashkortostan. The Bashkir Soda Company also manufactures chemicals that can be used for explosives or dual-use goods. Overnight, Ukraine again targeted an oil refinery in Slavyansk na Kubani. The extent of the damage is unclear, though locals report a fire near the plant. So it's one thing after another, after another, after another. It's pretty amazing what has been happening over the last week. Russian summer travel plans have been destroyed. Airports all over the country are again paralyzed. And this isn't new. The Russians are starting to get used to this. Okay, so meanwhile, what was Russia doing to Ukraine? Overnight, Russia launched 47 Shaheds and other UAVs plus 2 Iskander-K cruise missiles. 47 is remarkably low. They could put out about 150 per day. Ukrainian air defenses downed 1 Iskander-K, 16 drones, while 31 UAVs impacts were recorded in 15 different locations. Putin's forces also used drones to attack a civilian bus in Kherson region. At least 2 people were killed, another 10 people injured. The death toll may rise. I can't even show you the picture. It's like, and I want the picture out of my head. It's terrible. Civilians on a bus just being targeted because this is a new Holodomor. I mean, it's genocide. That's what it is. A few days ago, Russia used a new type of small cruise missile for the first time. Its name is still unknown, but it resembles scaled-down Storm Shadow and is conceptually similar to Ukraine's Peklo missile. So we'll see how they innovate with what that is. Okay, turning our attention to the battlefield. 940 Russians off the battlefield. That's a pretty low number for even the last few months. It's not lower than, but about on the lower 10% of the last couple of months. 5 tanks off the battlefield, 1 armored fighting vehicle, 41 artillery systems, 125 vehicles and fuel tanks off the battlefield. Engagements are up according to Ragnar Gudmundsson's dashboard. Casualties dip below 1,000. Relatively few overnight attacks, but many unfortunately got through. When they attack Kyiv, they have a greater shoot-down rate. When they attack in other locations where there's not really sufficient air defense, the Russians seem to do better. For Ukrainian 425th Separate Assault Regiment captured 32 Russian soldiers in 1 week during operations on multiple fronts. So that's 1 week, and that's just this one particular unit. So that's just a part of the picture of what's actually happening in Ukraine right now. In the Pokrovsk direction, Russian invaders led 33 assaults. Very low number of assaults for the Pokrovsk region. As we know, Pokrovsk is the area Russia wants most. Okay, let's turn our attention to what happened politically. And I'm going to do an entire different video on that later on, talking about all the background. But here I want to talk about the political spilling over to the military front lines and what actually is happening here. Ceasefire deadline passes. No additional Russia sanctions announced by Trump. Okay, so yesterday there was supposed to be a deadline at midnight U.S. time in order to say, okay, well, if we don't have this happen, sanctions go on Russia. Secondary sanctions, meaning secondary tariffs, go on India and China and whoever is soaking up Russian oil. And we haven't heard a peep from Trump yet. So could he still come out and say something? Possibly, but he hasn't so far, and we have to call a spade a spade. When we're looking at this, let's just look into the article here. I want to go down. U.S. President Donald Trump has not imposed fresh sanctions on Russia, even as Moscow has refused to cease hostilities in Ukraine by his August 8th deadline. So let's be fair. Hasn't happened, and you called it, and I'll show you what I'm talking about in just a moment. The U.S. president is set to meet with President Vladimir Putin for a high-level summit in Alaska on August 15th for peace talks. That's just a bad look. Trump has said that the potential peace deal will involve some swapping of territories as the U.S. intensifies efforts to broker a peace deal. Now, what's interesting about that is that when he's talking about a swapping of territories, I don't think he's talking about, well, we'll trade you this region here and maybe Kursk for Donetsk and Luhansk. It's not that at all. It's more like Donetsk and Luhansk are fully over, and maybe you'll have a pullout or we'll stop fighting in these other areas. Or it's bad. Whether you're looking at territory that's been fought over for 3.5 years. So we're looking at, this is Trump saying, well, you're looking at territory that's been fought over for 3.5 years. So we're looking at that, but we're actually looking to get some back. I'm not sure what he means by get some back. I think if he's saying that you get some back by approving of Putin keeping Donetsk and Luhansk, that's a fool's errand. Some swapping, it's complicated, he says. We're going to get some back. We're going to get some switched. There will be some swapping of territories for the betterment of both. But that's not the way that the Ukrainians see it at all. And we'll talk about that. Okay, so you called it in 6 days. Trump is supposed to add sanctions if Putin does not come to the table. These are 100% secondary sanctions on those who buy Russian oil. This was a poll that I posted on my YouTube channel. China, India, Brazil, etc. What will happen? 81% of you said Trump will postpone it for some time. Looks like you're right. At least you are right as of right now. Like maybe something will change later today. He'll come out with something. I don't know. Doubt it. But okay. Trump will impose those sanctions. As he said, 19% of you were expecting him to actually do it. So it hasn't happened yet. Okay, Putin is willing to agree to a full ceasefire if Ukraine withdraws forces from all of eastern Donetsk region, according to the Wall Street Journal. As part of the proposal, he allegedly said his government would pass a law pledging not to attack Ukraine or Europe. But he also has done that before and then attacked again. So his word might not be all that valuable at this point. And we got to remember, in context, Trump was asking for both sides to pledge to a ceasefire agreement. And as of August 9th, it's been 151 days since Zelensky agreed, and Putin has done nothing. Putin has, well, he talked about how he was going to start a ceasefire and then didn't actually do it. 151 days, Ukraine's been there. Okay, worse than Trump's deadline, again being meaningless, the U.S. president now aims to hand Putin territories of Ukraine that Russia has almost no chance of taking. Well, I mean, yeah, let's look at this. This is Euromaidan Press looking at it. Putin's reported ceasefire offer demands Ukraine surrender its fortress belt in Donetsk, a defense line built since 2014. Russia lacks the means to capture it and wants Kyiv to abandon it for nothing. And that's essentially, they'd be just turning it over to them. And like that doesn't seem like something Ukraine's interested in doing. This is the British intelligence update. Ground forces, the Russian ground forces, have highly likely seized approximately 500 to 550 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory in July 2025. and then again in June in 2025, about a similar amount. Okay, so let's say about 525 square kilometers. What does that mean? How much is that? Okay, so we looked that up. That's about the size of the city of Vienna, Austria. It's not nothing, but it's not Austria. Like in a month, they seized about the size of that city. Okay, so now what would that mean moving forward? Here's the Institute for the Study of War. Ceding Ukrainian-held parts of Donetsk Oblast will place Russian forces on the borders of Donetsk Oblast, a position that is significantly less defensible than the current line. Russian positions along the Donetsk, Kharkiv, and Donetsk Dnipropetrovsk Oblast border areas would provide more advantageous launching point for future Russian offensive, which is precisely what it seems like Putin would want. ISW continues to assess that Russian forces will almost certainly violate any future ceasefire or peace agreement and renew military aggression against Ukraine in the future unless a peace agreement includes robust monitoring mechanisms and security guarantees. That's the ISW's assessment. Seems pretty reasonable given their track record. Now, Russia's failure to seize Sloviansk in 2022 and ongoing struggles to envelop the fortress belt underscore the success of Ukraine's long-term efforts to reinforce the fortress belt cities. Russian forces are currently still attempting to envelop the fortress belt from the southwest, and they're engaged in an effort to seize it that would likely take several years to complete. So they could turn it over and have a ceasefire immediately, or it could take Russia a long, long time. And when we say long, long time, what do we mean? ISW assesses that Russia has yet to seize roughly 6,500 square kilometers of Donetsk Oblast, or about 25% of the region that they claim as their own, that they claim that is voted and wants Russia to be because Russia is so awesome. Okay, so what does that mean? It means it would take over a year, 12 point something months, if they focused completely on that. Like if all the square footage or square kilometers that they took were in just Donetsk Oblast, it would take over a year to complete that. And then we're still talking about the rest of it. Like this map shows a network of visible, some are concealed and not mapped, fortifications stretching to the edges of Donetsk Oblast. Ukraine is unlikely to give this up without a fight in exchange for promises broken in the past. I mean, I would understand why they wouldn't want to give that up, given Russia's track record. It just makes sense. Okay, now, Russian forces still need to seize approximately 7,200 square kilometers of Zaporizhia Oblast, roughly 26% of the region, and approximately 7,000 square kilometers in Kherson Oblast, including the city of Kherson, around 26% of that region, which they claim is theirs. So how long would that take? Well, that would take another 27 months on top of the 12 months before. So we're looking at 3+ years, almost 3.5 years by the time it's all said and done, if they could actually do it and concentrate and, focus on that. So the long and short is this is not a ceasefire. It's not a peace agreement. It's a demand for unilateral surrender. Remember, in the original plan, the formulation by Trump, you're supposed to just stop fighting, come to the table, and then start talking. Putin wants to have all these concessions. He'll come to talk about having these concessions to then get to a ceasefire. It's just totally backwards. Okay, here's John Bolton's assessment. He's on CNN talking to Caitlin Collins, and he's Trump's former national security advisor, famously broke with him. Here's what he had to say.
I mean, you were in the room in 2018 in Helsinki when this happened. What do you make of the fact that Putin has now been invited to Alaska?
Well, it's very gracious of Putin to come to former Russian America for this summit. This is not quite as bad as Trump inviting the Taliban to Camp David to talk about the peace negotiations in Afghanistan. But it certainly reminds one of that. The only better place for Putin than Alaska would be if the summit were being held in Moscow. So
it's just a bad look for Trump, for the United States, for Ukraine, for anywhere that's not Russia. Russia's looking really good in this. With this
setup, I think, is a great victory for Putin. He's a rogue leader of a pariah state, and he's going to be welcomed into the United States. Second, I have a feeling this is sliding very quickly in Russia's direction. We're not quite back at February the 28th in the Oval Office when Trump told Zelensky, you don't have any cards. But what's happening is that Russia and the United States are discussing what terms they're going to present to Zelensky. And it may well be that Zelensky has no choice here. Surrendering is always one way to get a peace deal. And it seems to me, you listen to Trump talking about how things are progressing, that even without the meeting, Putin's got his old magic back with Trump. And all that disappointment, all that outrage, so on and so forth. Now you're talking about a deal between Trump and Putin. Think of the press that will get. I have to say, from the strategic perspective, from the U.S. interest perspective, this was not a good day.
No, it was not. It was pretty bad. So, yeah, that's where we are. And Zelensky said, he already came out and said that he's not trading any territory. Like that's just off the table. All right. It's Robert Magyar Brody's birthday. He's 50. Why is that important? This is the guy that's behind the UAV mechanism, the Magyar birds, and the unmanned systems forces is doing more damage pound for pound, punching way above their weight. And if it wasn't for drones, I don't know how long Ukraine would have been able to last. All right. Last little bit by Darth Putin. After ignoring Trump's words and insulting and belittling him with my actions every single day of his second presidency, he has finally snapped and punished me with a one-on-one summit on U.S. soil. Guy has a way with words, doesn't he? All right, my friends, that's all that I have right now. I will do another video later on talking about the political side of what's going on and just the play-by-plays with that. And if there's any updates about sanctions or tariffs or anything like that, I'll certainly let you know. I'm not holding my breath. It looks like Trump zigged and zigged and zigged and zigged toward Russia and then zagged slightly and is now zigging back. That's just what it appears to be at this moment. But okay, I'll keep you posted. Thank you for your time, the likes, the shares, and the subscribes. And thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.